Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Can the Creaky Blinder make it through an entire live stream without accidentally muting himself? Now, we'll be answering that question and other far more important questions because we've got Planner Walk joining us tonight, and his opponent will be along shortly. So for the first 30 minutes or so, Cats, we are just going to grill young Planner Walk.
Yeah, we're gonna have a chat with. I'm not on mute, am I? Cool. Yeah, we're gonna have a chat with Planner Walk just for the first, I think, 25 minutes, because Planner Walk's opponent is rushing home from work, and was always. She's not disorganized. We always knew it would be 25 minutes before she could get here, and then we're gonna have the debate on white privilege. Does white privilege exist? What's the evidence for and against it? And I'm really looking forward to that one, actually. But for now. Planner Walk, how are you doing?
Ahoy hoy, I'm doing well. Yourselves?
Really well. I always like the ahoy hoy. Sorry, go on.
A lot of people do. Like, we've got people in chat that are saying ahoy hoy like the snark, so that's always good that it's catching on.
It is. I always like that when I see... and I'm sure Creaky's the same. Whenever Creaky sees someone post CGI, or I see someone post space comma or something, or you think, that's it. You think, I did that. I made that. So,
yeah, it's really weird, and it just became a thing all by itself. I did it once. I think it was in the Mark Sargent video I did it, and I had no intention of it being what it is, but you've got to run with these things, haven't you?
But you have. You know, space comma's in the Urban Dictionary now.
Is it really?
Oh, really?
Yeah, if anybody watches, if you Google space comma in the Urban Dictionary, it comes up as poor punctuation that flat earthers resort to, or something like that. One of my subscribers sent me an email with a link to it, and she managed to get it in there. So it genuinely is in the Urban Dictionary.
It is. You're definitely right. And just to show everyone what we're talking about. There we go. Space comma is a satirical taunt demonstrating the poor use of grammar that flat earth believers frequently use on comment threads and on internet message boards. It's become a very well-known joke among the community and is used when quoting a flat earther who has typed a space before a comma punctuation mark. You have created a monster.
Well, thank you very much. Creaky, I've just put, I don't know what account you're on, I've just made a post on the Conspiracy Cats account for anyone coming wondering if there's a debate or not, just to say there is one starting at 8. Can you pin it to the top of the chat, and then we don't have to keep saying there will be one? So, while he's doing that, you actually are creating a monster, because I didn't quite get to hear the end of your story off Planner Walk, but Are you allowed to tell people about the game that you're making? Have I just spoiled something, or?
Yeah, I'm able to. It's my game, so I'm able to do whatever. Tell people whatever I want about it. So yeah, I've been working on this game, and I do want to get Team Skeptic to play it sometime soon, because he'll probably fail at it. So.
And what you're allowed to tell us what the game is about?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I've mentioned this multiple times. It's about if the Earth were to actually be flat and there were a conspiracy to hide the shape of the Earth. Now, obviously, it doesn't take place in reality. It takes place on in a completely separate universe to our own. So yeah, completely different Earth as well. So, places like America just don't exist in this world.
or the horizon, or the laws of physics as we know them.
Oh, true, yeah.
Nathan Thompson seems to think that America is the world, so I don't know how he's going to how well received your game's going to be by him.
Oh, brilliant!
Well, I have to see.
Are we going to ever see a glimpse of the gameplay? Like, how playable is any of it at the minute?
Currently, it's pretty playable, I think. It's got a hybrid between turn-based RPGs, right, and platformers. So there'll be some areas where you'll be jumping around Mario style, and some areas where you'll be selecting an ability to use. But it's not just you select an ability and your character does it. You've actually got things like button prompts that you've got to press to actually give it a bit of to make it feel a bit more engaging. Like when you get attacked, you can press the if you're using a controller, it's the B button on the Xbox controller or circle button on PlayStation controller. You press that button, and then you can defend and reduce some of the damage. And it's actually necessary to do that in some areas of the game, and particularly difficult fights.
So I'm looking forward to this. I'm looking forward to that being out and playable. So, do you think there's a market out there?
Play.
What's that, Creaky?
Is it really easy to play?
I wouldn't say easy.
Oh, damn. Because
if you're talking
terrible at gaming.
I am trying to ease people into it through the level design and stuff, but that has proven difficult so far. One of the things that I'm going to have to actually do is when you die, I'm going to try and make it so that the game works out. Okay, why did you die? Did you die because you're just simply bad at the game? Or did you die because you weren't doing something correctly? If you weren't doing something correctly, it will try and identify what you weren't doing correctly and say, hey, you might want to do this.
So the game will try to teach you as you play through it then?
Well, as you die through it.
Yeah, well, yeah. I could learn really fast if I ever try playing it then.
One of the things that will be challenging though is to make it so that when you die, or to try and make it so that when the player first dies, because the player will die in the tutorial level. There's no doubt about, unless they're actually pretty good at the game, but there's no doubt that they'll probably die in the tutorial level. And I need to make it so that when they first die, they don't just give up.
That's what I tend to do, and that's why I don't really game that much, because I become a 5-year-old as soon as I die. The game is really stupid, and I don't want to play anymore.
I think that's where these open world games, like your Grand Theft Auto or your Red Dead Redemption, they've really hit on something, because you don't necessarily, like a normal platform game, get stuck on a point that you can't get past. If you go on a mission and it's an open world thing, it doesn't work out, you just go somewhere else. You just wander off somewhere else, don't you, and do your own thing. I think those games are awesome. I'm addicted to playing Red Dead at the minute online, so I'm still rubbish.
I need to reactivate my PlayStation Plus account, because it's been a while since I've played Red Dead.
I'm still rubbish, but it is good fun. I can't stop shooting every single person I see though. That's like I'm on a mission, then I see another human player, and I'm just like, I've got to go after him and shoot him. My favourite bit now is like putting the lasso around him and then just riding off, dragging him behind the horse until he dies. I like that. I get all Westworld on him with the escape. I just like, as long as I can see him on the map, I'm going for you. So yeah.
So how many times do you get killed?
All the time. Yeah, I'm useless. I'm still that bad that if I have a gun and they have a knife and they're running towards me with a knife, they will still get up to me and stab me before I shoot them. They've got to be far away, thinking I'm better than I am, running away for me to have any chance. But yeah.
Gregor Flint is asking, did Planet Walk's opponent leave? No, she hasn't arrived yet. It is a she, isn't it?
Yeah, she'll be here in 15 to 16 minutes, and she is definitely prepared. I was just saying to these guys off her, she sent me a PowerPoint to use, and it's like one of mine. It's nearly 60 slides long. So she's prepared for you playing our walk. She's prepared. I'm looking forward to this. And looking at it, she's definitely done her homework.
Yeah, I don't have 60 slides, but I do have fair number of tabs open. Although most of my tabs are like YouTube tabs that aren't anything related to this debate, but still have a lot of tabs open.
I see you got some high IQ research going on.
Exactly.
Oh, dear me. Love it. Absolutely brilliant. So, hey, well, maybe the chat could do question Planar Walk. Till the, if you've got any questions for Planar Walk, just tag it in. Could be about anything. We're going to drop you in it now, Planar Walk. You can ask him about anything, like the best recipe for toast, the best temperature for cornflakes. Could be anything. Well, I'm going to start that. What is the best temperature for cornflakes?
I have no idea. I haven't eaten cornflakes in ages. Actually, although to be fair, a good temperature for cornflakes is probably probably something around 30 degrees. And the reason for that is because having them warm out of the oven in Afghans is nice.
In Afghans?
Yeah, and Afghan biscuits.
Do we get them over here, Creaky?
I've not heard of them. I'm
going to Google that. An Afghan? I thought you meant like people from Afghanistan taking them out of the oven. I thought that is really like Afghan biscuits. Oh, right, yeah. I've never seen anything like that. Why are they called Afghans?
I have no idea.
They look like little droppings with nuts on top. Tasty one. Right. Okay. So there we go. Oh,
we've had a super chat coming from Almost Unbelievable. Shout out to Baldy Space Karma.
That's my ugly mug on the other thing there. Yeah, we. I'll take a second to shout out the old podcast. It's doing really well at the minute. So, but there's a link going to be going out on my page after this debate is finished for people to listen to the last one. But I'll do it after this. Then nobody's leaving here. But yeah, it's going really well. I'm really enjoying that at the minute. And I'm sure you're an avid listener, aren't you, Planar Walk? I'm sure you've heard every episode.
I haven't actually haven't actually listened to it. I'll have to actually watch a few videos on there.
No, it's just on Spotify really at the minute. There is a YouTube account, but it's mainly on Spotify. Okay. So 30 degrees is the actual perfect temperature for cornflakes.
I'm not sure of the actual particular temperature, but fresh out of the oven, basically.
Fresh. Right. Okay. Right.
So I see a few questions in the chat. So I'll go with Cornish 2's question. Who would Planar Walk prefer to be his dad? Creaky, Catz, or Simon Dan? And the answer is Wolfie 6020, obviously.
Because we would be the cool uncles, wouldn't we?
Exactly.
I think is like, am I old enough to be? Yeah, I am, aren't I? I know I am. I know I'm old enough to be your dad. So. I feel like I'm old enough to be Creaky's dad.
I think two of my kids are older than Planar Walk.
I think most people in the community are honestly old enough to be my dad.
but yeah, fair enough. But how many of them are making a computer game? So, that's a good question.
Exactly.
Who's your least favorite flat earther? Oh, that is a good question. I'd have to. Okay. When it comes to answering that question for people that call themselves flat earthers, then Nathan Oakley 100% is my least favorite. But for actual people who are flat earthers and believe that the earth is flat, that is a difficult question because because I can easily answer who my favorite flat earthers are, but my least favorite, I do have to say that.
Favorite?
What?
You've got a favorite flat earther?
Yeah, like it's Ranty, obviously.
Is that because you know he's the one who's asked the question? There you go. Got the answer.
Is Ranty actually running that account, not Catz, right now?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm conspiracy cats in the chat. Yeah, I think that must be that. Well, if it's not ranting, we've been hacked. Is all I can say. So, oh dear. Good question. Right. Well, what else have we got for you? Does
Got one for
gas?
Oh, what's that?
What's like to it?
Got
You
one for
know what?
Kat?
Yeah, I'm actually having a load of fun doing those things. They are so much fun to do, and the people we've got to speak to have been great. If people don't know what I'm talking about, then I don't want to drive anyone away from the stream while we're doing the stream, but check out my community post that will come out after we've done this show. Okay, so there's nothing to go and see now, but go and have a look afterwards. It's I'm having great fun. Yeah, it is a good time. So yeah, interesting stories. What have we got for? Say eggs.
Eggs or else. There you go. Done.
Oh no, Planner Walk. It was eggs. Try again.
It says say eggs or else. So eggs or else.
No, it's say eggs or else.
Should be a comma in there, shouldn't there then?
No, it's just something slightly off about the pronunciation. EGGS, eggs. And I don't have an accent, as everyone knows, so I'm an authority on the topic. Cats, how do you say EGGS?
Eggs.
Well, yeah, it's not IEGGS, which would then make eggs.
There's one word that people. It's actually surprising that they're now asking me to say eggs when there used to be something else that people asked me to say, and they're probably going to get me to say that very soon because.
Well, we are. I wonder if the chat can remember which word he can't pronounce, which is quite hilarious, because we'll definitely bring it up. Oh, dear me.
Yeah, somebody's on. Do you plan a walk?
What's wrong with the way I say dick?
Oh, he got it. That wasn't too bad this time. Have you ever been on it? Go on.
That is not the normal way that I say it, though. I've just learned to pronounce it in a way that people can actually understand me.
Well, I've got a question. When you're on holiday playing a walk and you're out on the beach and it's sunny and you want to sit down and just relax, what type of chair do you sit on?
You know them chairs that like look really flimsy and have like little bands on them. Those chairs. Oh, and they fold up as well.
Oh, love it. So, if you have just come late, not late, or if you just joined us, there is a debate tonight. There absolutely is. In less than 10 minutes, Play No Walk's opponent will be here. She's thoroughly well prepared. She's definitely on her way. Just time zones and stuff. She's just finishing work and she'll be here soon. So, yeah, the debate. I'm looking forward to this debate, actually, Creaky. The topic, I think, it'll send us the side chat a little bit active,
Yeah,
I think. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's going to be an interesting one.
Definitely. Yeah. And I think we've got a couple of interesting ones on the way, actually. But I will leave that for another time. All right. So, what can we ask Play No Walk now? What's in the chat?
Well, we've asked him to say words we know he can't, so we've covered that already.
He's told us the best temperature for cornflakes.
Yeah.
Wade Watts just said, "Don't take this abuse. Mention here."
What? I didn't see that.
Mention her. So I've got her.
David. You have.
I can actually go look at that. Look in the camera. I just keep it short deliberately, like. But look at all that I can grow. Sorry, go on.
Mostly on my ass and my lower back, but I've definitely got hair. Just not where I'd like it to be.
Oh man.
Yeah, I can do that. There we go. It's really hard to have a tinfoil hat on though and have headphones on.
Looking good. Looking good. Does that actually make a difference? Does that actually protect you from like the stupidity when you're watching some of these videos that we have to sit through?
It protects me from the 5G rays, doesn't it? 5G death blazes.
I've seen people selling and buying, and I'm sure you've all seen this before, but selling and buying little devices that you put on your mobile phone to protect you from 5G, right? And the people who buy it, stick it on the mobile phone, don't clock that, or protect you from even 4G, right? Don't clock that the phone is still receiving a 5G signal. So how can it work? Like, how are those things supposed to work if your phone is still receiving the signal? It's ridiculous.
I have an idea. I can buy probably one of these little things. Now, people in the chat, don't mention this to anyone because this is a great idea that I might do. Buy one of these little things, right? And just, like paint on the 5G protection chip. Get like a get like a 4 gigabyte one for real cheap. Paint on it 5G protection chip, and then sell it as something that protects your phone from 5G.
Well, that is exactly what people have done, isn't it? That is exactly, like, it is ridiculous. And people are foolish enough to buy them as well. My God. Surely, before you shell out, do the most basic, learn the most basic things about electromagnetic radiation. My goodness. Anyway, here we are. There's some foreign language in the chat there. We're cultured. We're cultured. Can you read that, Plain or Walk?
Where's this? I'm trying to find the particular one.
There's a couple of examples.
That one?
Snark's latest one. Yeah. Yeah. Just translate that one for us.
Vlaams heeft voor mij niet vertaald te worden het bed Bijbel. Dat verste ik prima. Het mon Francis niet pas mal in het na het ik zie jij beaucoup appris.
Now that was flawless. I think that was flawless. The pronunciation was amazing. I know the Snark. I met the Snark. Is a really nice guy, and I know he speaks like a million different languages, which is I don't know. It's incredible. How many do you speak, Creaky? Do you?
I struggle with English, if I'm being honest.
Do you speak a bit of Welsh, or?
I can understand certain things, but very, very little. But my kids all went to Welsh school, so they're all Welsh speaking.
So it's like. Sorry, yeah, I had a question, and then it just went.
Sorry, mate. It's kind of one of those things, and the best way I explain it is a huge number of Welsh people don't speak Welsh, and yet you never come across a Chinese man that can't speak Chinese or a Spaniard that can't speak Spanish, but yet the majority of Welsh people do not speak the language.
And how much of that is down to the geography of where you are in Wales? Because I go to, or used to go on holiday to Wales a lot. And some years I'd go and not hear any Welsh. And some years I'd go and I'd be hearing it everywhere I went. And I can't remember. So are there just some towns, some places that, it exists more than others?
Basically, central... Sort of, I live in southwest Wales. So the further west you go, the more Welsh you hear being spoken. It tends to be in pockets. But then if you go really far west, down as far as Pembroke and Fishguard, there's less Welsh. But it tends to be sort of Carmarthen, and the small villages sort of are around Carmarthen. There tends to be more people that are Welsh speaking, but I don't know if it's people would call it a dying language or just that most people are like me and they just can't be asked to learn it.
I hope it doesn't.
People that the majority of people that speak Welsh went to a Welsh-speaking school, or their parents are Welsh-speaking, so it tends to be passed down that way, and none of my family were. So my wife didn't even start learning to speak English until she was about 4 years old. She could only speak Welsh and only understand Welsh because all her family were Welsh speaking, and she had no reason to learn English until she went to school.
So I think that's great. And as long as you've got those Welsh speaking schools as part, even if it's just a fraction of the infrastructure, then it will keep that language alive. And I think it'd be horrendous to lose an actual language. I think it'd be horrendous.
It's a strange one, and I've always wished I could speak Welsh, but it is what it is. I never bothered learning, so I'm probably never going to.
Can you speak Welsh, plain or walk?
Nope. At best, I can speak a tiny bit of Japanese, like imananji desu ka?
Ah, what does that mean?
What is the time?
Right. That is awesome. Can you order a beer in Japanese?
Nope.
Oh wow!
I do know that because of when I was doing Japanese in school. It was one of the phrases that I remembered, imananji desu ka? And then there's also a couple of other things that I know, like itadakimasu. That's something that they say before eating.
And what's it mean?
I think it just means let's eat or something like that. I'm not sure what it. I'm
Which
not
would be
sure
sensible
what
to say before you eat. Yeah.
I was just gonna say I've seen it like whenever I see it in like an anime or something, it gets translated in subtitles to. Whenever I hear it in anime, it gets translated in subtitles to "Let's eat."
Well, there you go.
Reed Watt says you do have something in common with the Welsh, and I had to Google it because I didn't have a clue what he was talking about. But apparently, in the early 1860s, Welsh immigrants settled mostly in Auckland, Wellington, Nelson, and Canterbury.
There is something else that I have that Kiwis have in common with the Welsh, but I'm not. No, it's not there. Let me find. Give me a few seconds to try and find something. I'm not sure where I've put it. I'll be right back.
Crackle Cat just said in the chat there, yeah, the English are notorious for the lack of language abilities. And I agree with that. I think that, especially being a teacher and seeing how languages are taught, not seeing how they are taught, but seeing the curriculum time they're given in secondary schools. And it's not, I've grown up not being able to speak any other language. It's really, really, now it bugs me, whereas in other countries, it's part of the culture. You're exposed to other languages more, you learn other languages more, and it's, I don't know.
What we think is, if, for example, you go on holiday anywhere in Spain, the majority of the Spaniards you come across, and certainly the younger generation, they can all speak English relatively well. And I had a conversation with a Spaniard when we were out in Spain last, all the way back in 2019. Thanks, COVID-19. And he said, no, you've got no choice. You have to take English all the way through school. It's a compulsory language.
I can kind of understand why some schools would do it, because if you look now at the future, all the kids who are in school now, their future, whatever job they get, is undoubtedly going to involve some sort of communication over IT. If they're in any kind of business, they're going to be working with offices all over the world, because that's the way the world is progressing, and it is getting smaller and smaller in that regard. And a lot of the big businesses, a lot of the big companies, are going to be based in America or, English-speaking languages. And I get that you're keeping options open for that. So I understand it. But it would just be nice if in England, I don't know, languages were given more of the curriculum time,
Yeah.
It is.
I remember when I was in school, as soon as I was able to drop languages, I dropped them all. Because I was a teenager, I didn't care if I could speak French or Spanish or even Welsh. And, you know,
Fair
I suppose it's a nice skill to have, but, you know, languages are notoriously difficult to learn, aren't they?
Yeah.
Well,
that's
I couldn't find what I was looking for, but what I was looking for is a soft toy sheep.
Oh, is it?
Both Kiwis and the Welsh are known for their affinity towards sheep.
Yeah, they are. You're right.
That's to put it politely.
Yeah.
But
Right then.
yeah, so there we go. Is our guest said about 8:05? Is our guest here?
Yeah, she's not here yet. Clive Wells says there are two languages, English and foreign.
True.
There's been a lot going on the internet lately about American people. Sorry, any Americans that are watching, saying that there's a British accent, and it's upsetting an awful lot of British people because I definitely haven't got a British accent. You haven't got a British accent, Catz.
No. The variety of accents in the UK is ridiculous. You can get in the car and an hour later you can be somewhere where people have a completely. But I suppose if we said there's an American accent, then Americans would, you know, you've got the deep South accent, you've got the New York accent, you know, that they. You know, there isn't an American accent either, is there? I suppose, but I'm guilty of using that, like, you know, saying I'm going to put an American accent on for this, and you know, but there isn't.
But you know what I think that is I'm exactly the same. So an American accent is the accent you hear American people speaking with mainly in Hollywood blockbusters, because that's our sort of biggest, you know, experience of an American accent, and it's generally what would be considered to be a generic American accent rather than being a Southern accent or a New York accent. And I think we've sort of blended them all into one, even though they're not one. You know, it's like you say, even in Swansea, right? Swansea isn't a huge town, but there's different accents within Swansea. I live on the west side of Swansea, west side. And there's, you know, if you go into the town centre, it's a totally different accent. I'm not saying I've got one, because obviously that would just be silly. But even within Swansea, there are different accents. You know, different districts within Swansea have got slightly different accents.
Well,
there is Sorry, Plano, go on.
Oh, it's the same here within New Zealand. In New Zealand, there are different accents depending on not only where you are in New Zealand, but also what communities you're in as well. Like if you're if you grow up in the communities that I did, I kind of grew up in both different types of communities, but like the sort of general white community, should I say, that I grew up in, you know, you'll end up with a accent that's more similar to mine. But if you grow up in a more Māori community, then you'll end up with a different accent. And I know plenty of people that grew up with that accent.
Mary's
arrived, guys.
Okay. Koki, right. So the debate is almost on. Dun, 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 dun. I don't know why I did that, sorry.
Hey, Mary, how are you?
Just as long as you don't start singing the Jeopardy theme song.
Promise I won't. Hello.
Hi.
How are you doing?
I am well. I have been, you know, that nervous, sick to your stomach feel? I've had that all day. I'm just so excited.
Don't be nervous. It's all laid back here, and Plain or Walk is as civil as they come, aren't you, buddy? So this should be good. I have your PowerPoint, so if you want me to bring up a slide, I can do. Unless unless you're happy with figuring out the screen share stuff at your end, you can bring it up yourself. It's up to you, whatever you decide. But
okay, well. Okay, I see the screen share. I think when I use it, I'll probably do that. I have it planned that way.
Cool. So, What do we do now, Creaky? Do we get straight into
I
it?
don't know.
Or do we say hello?
Definitely should. I think we should definitely allow Mary the opportunity to introduce herself. Planner Mork can sit there and be quiet because he's not shut up since we went live 30 minutes ago. So, Mary, would you like to tell everyone a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Well, I don't know. I'm a teacher and I love teaching. And I found Conspiracy Catz probably, gosh, it was last May, I remember, because it was after a fight I had with my dad about flat Earth. And so I started watching Simon Dan and then found Catz and just have absolutely been amused since then with his stuff. And then when you guys started this debate show, I was super excited. I enjoyed watching several of the debates here, and yeah, I'm just happy to be here. Excited to participate. That was just, stoked that you guys took this topic and ran with it. Nervous, as I said. It's like what it felt like with stage fright, Anyway, I don't know what else to say. I'm excited.
Don't be nervous. It's nothing like being sat in front of 32 13-year-olds that don't want to be in your lesson. So don't worry about that. You've got a tougher day job than you have a night job. Trust me, you'll be fine. If you can teach. Is it secondary you teach? Like that?
Yeah, it is secondary. And I will tell you, my first year teaching was scary. But I've been in it for a while now. But and I know the kids, so it's not like, I don't know. I feel like I don't have to impress them anymore, which is dumb because I do have to impress them. But yeah, I don't know. New setting.
Spoken like a good teacher there, because it's always nervous when you get a new class, but once you've built them relationships with the kids, suddenly it all becomes, and you've established good relationships and good routines, it all becomes easy, doesn't it? But that first lesson with that new class, your heart can be like that, can't it? Like, oh, who's coming through the door?
Yeah, because you do have to earn their trust and their respect, and then hope that, I want to be able to respect my students too. So if you can keep good relations going, then you have just less problems going down the road.
Well, should we toss a coin for who goes first, Creaky, or do any of you particularly want to go first, or what do you think? Or should we toss a coin for who chooses?
I don't mind whoever goes first.
Have you got a preference, Mary? I
had assumed that I would go second since I've got the negative, but I would be happy to go first. I don't care. What's that to say? I don't care.
So neither of you have got a preference. No. All right. So you can both go where you want. All right. Well, I'll toss a coin then. Heads for Playing Our Walk. Tail for Mary, and it is a tail. So Mary, you do get to go first. And yeah, let's
are we using a stopwatch tonight?
I don't think so. I think we've got two people here that we probably don't need that for. Yeah.
Okay. Well, okay, so does it matter then because I had written something, and if I read really fast, it took just shy of 10 minutes. But if we're not using a stopwatch, then I can just.
So you mean for the opening? I lost my mind there.
I wasn't thinking for the back and forth, not so much, but opening.
Yeah. Sorry, I was thinking because in the past we've done like 3-minute alternate things. Sorry, I was a step ahead of myself then. That's what I was thinking you were thinking of. But yeah. Should we have a stop clock for the opening thing? 10 minutes and pass to Playing Our Walk. Sorry, mate. I was just thinking of something different there.
That's all right. No worries. I've been married for 28 years. I'm used to not being listened to. Mary, whenever you're ready, you fire away.
Okay. So if I click on the share, will that pull up what I see?
It will give you the option to bring up your PowerPoint. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to click share screen, and then oh, I see. It says shares. Okay. I don't have two monitors. I'm just going to click this, and then. Oh, well, I could have. All right. How's that? Can you guys see that?
I can. Yeah, I can see it, and I'll add it to the stream now. So you ready to go, Mary? Yeah.
Yes, I am. Okay.
Okay, fire away. 10 minutes starts now.
From watching several debates here and watching Conspiracy Cats and a little bit of Planner Walk, I know how much the actual scientific method and reasoning is appreciated. You guys understand the importance of data when determining scientific reality. The same goes for socioeconomic studies. To make reasonable statements about a society or economy, you must look at a broad scope of empirical data, statistical analysis, and laws. White privilege is an idea first espoused by a woman named Peggy McIntosh. She published a paper during her undergrad years as a student of women's studies at Wellesley College University called White Privilege and Male Privilege, a personal account of coming to see correspondences through work in women's studies. The title itself tells you this paper is based solely off personal anecdotal evidence. And as you know from watching countless Flat Earth videos, personal anecdotal evidence is not sufficient for making broad sweeping claims. The paper contains no empirical data. It was never subjected to any statistical analysis. In a postgraduate university, this paper would not have received a passing grade for the hypothesis part of an undergraduate honors thesis, much less receive the attention given to it to create an entire ideology, a dangerous and damaging ideology, no less. When we look at an entire system of social construct to determine what is happening and what causes certain people to succeed and certain people to fail, we must apply the same type of scientific research and study stratagems as we would to any other field of scientific study. We do not rely on our personal accounts, rather we rely on empirical data, statistical analysis, and when discussing social issues, we look at current laws. When we consider the data of who succeeds and who doesn't, we find that there are a few types of privileges that tend to have more impact on a person's success rate, but nowhere near the top is the racial privilege. The three things most likely to impact your success in America are your household configuration, your education, and your work ethic. I will be showing you statistics that indicate this to be so, and I will be presenting expert opinion from professionals who study the economy and social strata in the United States. If white privilege was the primary factor for success, you would expect to see white people at the top of any graph indicating wealth and family income, and yet this is simply not true. Consistent with every graph I could find on the topic, this graph shows that Asians make consistently $20,000 more than their white counterparts when we look at median household income. Why is this? They certainly don't have white privilege, and they're not because they're not white. It goes back to what I said and what I will show you. The success is rooted in your household configuration, your education, and your work ethic. Asians have fewer instances of single-parent households in America. Education is extremely important to them, and they work like mad to get ahead, and they succeed. This is the key. Anyone can do those things and get ahead in America, regardless of race or origin. When people talk about white privilege, however, they often are talking about the disparities between the white and black Americans or Hispanic Americans, and there are very large disparities there. We cannot attribute them to racial differences, though. There are more factors at work than who is white and who is not. We cannot make a blanket statement about the social environment today without taking into account of the history of the United States and the minority people therein. My argument is that anyone can succeed in the United States if they work hard enough, create a strong family unit, and get educated. And this is evidenced by the strides made by the people of African descent in America. This quote from the professor of economics, Walter E. Williams, puts their gains into perspective. He said, as a group, Black Americans have made the greatest gains over the shortest period of time. If you added up the income and spending of Black Americans and just thought of them as having their own GDP, they would be at the top 20 nations in terms of the top 20 richest nations. It was a Black American who was the head of the world's mightiest military, Colin Powell. We had a Black or mixed race president. Some of the world's most famous personalities are Black. He thinks a lot of people ignore the great progress that Black Americans have made and have played the blame game or racial discrimination game instead of looking at the hard facts. Notice what he says at the end. They play the blame game instead of looking at the hard facts. The hard facts are wealth is rising despite what race you are. And you can get ahead if you have a strong family unit, you get an education, and you work hard. I would like to take a moment to say two things. I would never argue there was never such a thing as white privilege. Our history is clear that there were some seriously wicked times when racism was rampant and whites treated minorities abominably. Secondly, I would not say there are no privileges whatsoever. If we were to name a list of privileges, it would go on forever. It would have to include so many things: health privilege, height privilege, male privilege, female privilege, age privilege, old or young, location privilege, etc. All of those privileges I named actually have a greater impact on your success than race privilege. Candace Owens, founder and co-leader of Blexit and Turning Point USA said very aptly, white privilege ended when there stopped being laws in place that stop me as a black person doing what you're able to do as a white man. There is no law in place that is stopping a person because of the color of their skin from gaining the economic privilege, which is why I do not believe that white privilege, which is based on the color of your skin, exists. As you may have noticed, she mentioned that white privilege ceased when laws changed that no longer prevented people based on race to succeed. The current laws on the books in the United States protect the rights of all citizens of the United States, regardless of race or gender. It ensures people can vote and cannot be discriminated against in businesses or education. When loopholes were found, the original laws were shored up with the Civil Rights Act of 1991 to ensure discrimination ceased and penalties for it were steeper. Laws, therefore, do not hold people back. In fact, laws make it possible for people to fight discrimination in court. As I have said, there are other factors that help ensure people get a leg up in life: household configuration, education, and hard work. Here are some quick statistics about the benefits of intact two-parent households. 16% of people living in poverty are cohabitating couples. 24.2% of people living in poverty are of single-parent households with more than one adult. 38.1% of people living in poverty are of single-parent households with no other adults living in poverty. Only 8.2% of people living in poverty are married couples. As you can see, apart from not living in poverty, children from intact households have other advantages too. Children from intact households are less likely to commit crime, have lower levels of risk-taking behaviors. They are more likely to stay in school. They are better students in school. They cause less trouble at school. They are more likely to go to college, and they tend to get a good job. If we wanted to call things privileges, we should rather realize that it is more of a privilege to have both parents than what your skin color is. Leaders have even acknowledged that the leading importance of two-parent households, including people like Barack Obama and Kwesi Mfumwe, former president of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. Obama said, "We know the statistics that children who grow up without a father are 5 times more likely to live in poverty and commit crime, 9 times more likely to drop out of schools, and 20 times more likely to end up in prison. They are more likely to have behavioral problems or run away from home or become teenage parents themselves, and the foundations of our community are weaker because of it." And Mfumwe said, when asked, as between the presence of white racism or the absence of black fathers, which poses the bigger threat to the black community, he answered immediately, the absence of black fathers. When questioned at a hearing concerning white supremacy, Candace Owens attacked the idea that it was racial issues that kept black people down. Her answers were swift and succinct. If they were to actually address the things that I said today that are actually harming Black American: number 1, father absence; number 2, the education system and the illiteracy rate. Illegal immigration ranks high, abortion ranks high, white supremacy and white nationalism, if I had to make a list again of 100 things, would not be on it. The simple fact is, there is one simple roadmap out of poverty, according to Professor of Economics Walter E. Williams. Complete high school, get a job, any job, get married before you have kids, be a law-abiding citizen. Among both Black and white Americans so described, the poverty rate is in the single digits. As you can see from this slide, the demographic with the highest percentage of married couples is the Asian race. As I showed you before, they're at the top of the socioeconomic scale. The demographic with the second highest percentage of married couples are the whites. Again, second wealthiest people group. Is this simply correlation with no causation? Maybe, but I doubt it. You can see in this that the percentage of married couples in the United families in the U.S. living below poverty level is in the single digits. Clearly, living in a stable household with 2 parents in the home leads to the ability to rise above poverty level. This statistic holds true even for our poorest minority. Black married couples also experience single-digit poverty rates. Here is a chart indicating the poverty level of children with parents of various levels of education. Again, as you can see, the higher the education, the less likelihood of poverty. White privilege is not just a wrong idea, it is a damaging idea. As Walter E. Williams, professor of economics, says, they are polluting our kids on college campuses, teaching them about white privilege. They're polluting the minds of young people, both Black and white young people, that somehow if you have higher income, your kids go to better schools and they achieve more. That is some kind of privilege. I think that they ought to get rid of the concept of white privilege and just call it achievement. He is absolutely right. Cultural activists have blown white privilege so out of proportion that they have said that achievement is in fact part of white culture and whiteness. I want you to look carefully at this, but we can't take too long on it. This is saying that the white dominant culture has created certain norms that are not inherently inherently right, but are rather inherently white. This is rubbish. These aspects are not white. They are aspects of hardworking, industrious people, as present in Asian and Middle Eastern culture as it is in European culture. Look at this. This poster targets the very things that can allow a person to become independently wealthy in this nation. Individualism, the family structure I was talking about. Is that my time?
I think that was that the time of Creaky? You're on mute, Creaky, mate.
Damn! Yes, that was 10 minutes.
All right.
Wow. I tell you what, I thought when I did a debate, I crammed a lot into the introduction. I am super impressed at the amount of information that was put in there. That was something special. Awesome job there, Mary. Well done. What were we going to ask? We were going to ask a question, weren't we, Creaky? What were we going to ask?
Yeah, Mary, do you have any social media links or website links or anything you want us to share in the side chat as the debate goes on?
I do not. I got off social media. It was super stressful, especially during the Brett Kavanaugh hearings.
There we are. No problem at all. No problem at all.
Right, Mr. P, Mr.
Right.
Walk, Mr. Planar Walk. Your turn on deck.
All right, so I'm certainly not as prepared as Mary was, so I'm just going to share my screen. I'm just going to select screen. All right, there we go. Can you see that?
Something's coming.
All we can see is the spinning circle of doom.
Is that spinning circle on your desktop there, Planar Walk, or can you see the document you're sharing?
I can see what I'm sharing. It should be my entire screen.
Right, okay. I don't know why this is happening. Mary, you couldn't do me a favor and stop sharing your screen.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I had. Yep.
No, I don't think it is that, but yeah, Planar Walk, stop sharing and try sharing again, pal.
Okay, cool. Oh, why is it not? Why is my mouse not doing anything?
Maybe your computer has thrown a wobbler.
Yeah, that's annoying. Let me go.
I'm just going to address a couple of questions in the chat while you're sorting that out. A couple of people are asking, are we discussing white privilege specifically in America? And that was something actually, Mary, you wanted to clarify before the debate started, isn't it? And we started an email thread and we never actually got to the bottom of that.
So, can I tell you what Planar Walk told me?
Oh, you did carry on with it. Okay, right.
Yeah,
Sorry,
I think we forgot to continue CCing you or something. What he said is that he would mostly be using examples from the United States, but he would also use a couple examples from New Zealand. I don't know anything about New Zealand. I could have talked more about England, but that's what we had talked about.
Okay, so there you go for the chat. So it's mainly America, a bit about New Zealand as well. And the man himself is back.
All right, let's hope that it works now.
Yes, I can see it now.
Okay, cool. This is from yesterday. All right, so white privilege. So there's quite a few people don't quite understand what white privilege is and what it isn't. So the first thing that I need to mention is that white privilege does not mean that if you are white, it immediately means that you'll be successful. That is not what white privilege means, and I'm sure that's not what Mary thinks that white privilege is. White privilege is usually because you are white, there are certain things that certain benefits that you get, or usually means that there are certain benefits that you'll get because of your skin color. One of these things, one of the examples of this comes down to what's known as implicit bias, and that is when you are treated differently because there are certain biases that people don't really know that they hold. So, for example, there are things like implicit bias in healthcare. this can lead to white people getting different treatments in healthcare or being recommended different medicines in healthcare than other people. There's also when it comes to people being convicted or people being pulled up by cops, that's another thing that comes down to implicit bias. And one of the funny things that happens when people get pulled over by cops is one of the difference. So I should probably read some of the things out here that are. So blacks are over 3.5 times as likely as whites to be stopped. But one of the interesting things that has been found is this disappears at nighttime. It actually becomes more even. I was trying to find the source for that particular stat, but I was unable to find it when I was looking for it. But that is one thing that I've heard, but I'm not going to rest my whole argument on that. And also, when it comes to wrongful convictions, there's the case that African Americans are only 13% of the American population, but a majority of innocent defendants wrongfully convicted. But they constitute 47% of the 1,900 exonerations listed in the National Registry of Exonerations. So there are a lot of people that are African American that are getting convicted of a crime wrongfully and then later getting exonerated. So there's heaps of examples of implicit bias, and I think that is one of the main things that does lead to white privilege. Some other examples do include applicants for jobs. White people get 50% more callbacks than black people. There's examples of when applying for education, white people tend to get preferential treatment compared to black people. But one of the main things that we're talking about is whether being white does lead to more success. And that's why I've got a study here on economic mobility. Economic mobility is essentially a measurement of how easy it is to move between different economic sectors in society. So this means that if you are low income, for example, how easy is it for you to move from being low income to high income? And when it comes down to it, it actually has found that black men are unable to have much less economic mobility than white men. So in this graph here, it shows that no matter what you are earning, as a white man, you are more likely to be more economically mobile than being a black man. I accidentally clicked on. One of the interesting things, though, is that this does disappear when it comes to females. In fact, it has found that using the same economic conditions, that black females are actually slightly more economically mobile than white females. This does not mean that black females are doing better than white females because there is still a disparity. It's just that given certain set of economic conditions, black females are more likely to be higher achievers than white females. However, this does not hold for the males. And the reason why black females aren't as well off as white females in general is because they still have a lower average income. This is just focused on the economic mobility. Economic mobility, and this shows the density of income ranks. But that is more of a class. I think that's more of a class issue rather than a race issue there. So the main thing that I'm wanting to focus on is this part here: the black men not being able to be as economically mobile as white men, and I think that's it.
Okay, awesome. Are we there? No, you're on mute again, bud.
I was just checking that my microphone was working properly. I don't know if we want to just get straight into the back and forth, guys, obviously because of the time.
Yeah, I think it would be great to get straight into the back and forth.
So, I'd say, Murray, do you want to start by just making any old point, whatever, and then obviously you're both very civil, articulate people. I know this isn't going to be a shouting match. I know you're both going to be able to debate civilly, so we'll not put any restrictions on you. Do you want to just start where you want, and we'll just watch and see where it goes?
Sure. I'll go ahead and springboard off of some of what Planar Walk was just saying. Planar Walk, did you happen to look into any of other potential causes for these discrepancies that you saw besides just the racial differences?
No, I haven't. Well, there's a couple that you brought up that we'll talk about, but I haven't gone ahead and looked at what all the different factors that could have led to this. But my main, what it does look like is it could be something due to I would assume that it's something to implicit bias, but I could be wrong on that.
Okay, and are you familiar with? I felt a little bit. I feel like I have an unfair advantage since a lot of what we're talking about is American law and American cultural issue. Are you familiar with our laws on affirmative action?
Some of them, yes.
Are you aware that now in schools and in companies, especially big companies like Google, a lot of these places have they would not call them quotas because that would be illegal. White people and Asians could then sue, but there's actually these companies and schools have lists of people that they want to get hired or get put into their school. In fact, I have quotes from Brandon Tatum. He was a black officer, and I think he's retired from policing. But he points out, he's like, it's absolutely certain that colleges specifically will bend over backwards to accept people of minorities now, and there are rising lawsuits in places like Google and YouTube because they were giving a higher commission to their hiring personnel if they could get females or people of minority hired. And so we have lawsuits on our hands because affirmative action was being abused to hire more of these people of minority and women rather than white men and Asians. Asians are suing too.
So yeah, this is something that I have heard a little bit about. It does seem like it is more of a thing that companies are doing to sort of say, hey, look, we are diverse. Look at all these different types of people that we are hiring.
Yeah.
One of the interesting things that I found, though, particularly with the Google one, is that when they did hire a lot of women, what they found is that men in Google, on average, were still paid more than women. And I'm not sure if it's the same for white people versus black people or white people versus minorities or not. But that is one interesting thing that I do remember hearing about.
There is also that discussion of the pay gap for women, and that would be secondary to what we're talking here. I don't think, because that would also fall under the Civil Rights Act of 1991 and the affirmative action laws that would put any employee who was paid less would then be able to sue the companies. And I know companies work really hard to not do that. So I don't think that you would find that individuals in the same job would be paid less based on race or gender.
Well, it's not so much. So when you're hired, and this is something that I had an interesting discussion with someone else recently. When you're hired, you'll be paid the same, but it's getting a raise would be another story.
I could see that. I was in conversation just the other day with a white military officer, and he said that recently, because as you say, people are more and more trying to signal that they're not, they're not racist, and they're well, I forget the term that you used. They're trying to show that they're more welcoming, etc. He had, I think at the same time as his request for promotion went in, there were 6 people of minority ahead of him, and he had the best marksmanship, the best speed on all parts of the test. But because the military is making this push for minorities, all of those people were advanced before him. He's still waiting for his promotion. So I think it's working actually in opposition to white people, specifically white males right now. And actually, I have another example. I don't need to pull this up, but I am going to read a quote to you from President Biden. Let me see if I can find this. President Biden said, sorry.
Whilst you're pulling that up, I do want to ask if this is acting specifically in opposition to white males, then why do white males seem to have a higher economic mobility than black males?
That is an excellent question that I'm going to have to think about. One sec. I'm sorry, I can't find this quote.
And it is also been found that males do have a higher. There was something else that I have looked into where males had a higher economic mobility than females as well. So
yes, okay, I will absolutely talk about the different mobility for males versus females. Let me read you the quote from Biden, though. This is an example of how we might actually have systemic racism coming back into the United States. Biden said this. He said that his administration the focus will be on, this is a quote, focus will be on small businesses on Main Street that aren't wealthy and well-connected, that are facing real economic hardships through no fault of their own. Here's what he said. Our priority will be Black, Latino, Asian, and Native American-owned small businesses, women-owned businesses, and finally we'll have unique access to resources needed to reopen and rebuild. If you notice, there's only one group of people that is missing, and that is white men. We are still in a recession from the coronavirus, and there are many people who have had to close businesses of all races and both genders. And by making a statement like that his focus is going to be on the minorities and women, he is clearly, it is a systemic, it's going to be a government-led thing that will put white men at a disadvantage for their small businesses. Now, your question, I can go on unless you want to comment on that.
Yeah, I do think that it is one thing, like leaving certain groups out of this would be a bad thing. I do think that it's a good thing to try and focus on, the businesses, the businesses that aren't doing as well. And I think that's, the best thing to do, rather than just being, okay, let's do this, get this business doing well because it's got this, thing and the next thing.
Right.
Yeah. So I can agree a bit there. But
Okay. Well, cool. I'm sorry. I'm not gloating. I'm just really excited that we're having a conversation. We're like, oh yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. And I might have to, I right off the top of my head, I can't think. Well, okay. Let me talk first about why are men more economically mobile than women. As a general rule, the wage gap between men and women is not because of gender differences. It is rather because of different choices in business and college education. I don't have the exact numbers on me. I didn't research on the gender differences between men and women, but I do know that as a general rule, women who go into college go for degrees that are not going to get as much money. The jobs with the greater percentage of women tend to be things like social workers, nurses, educators, designers, interior designer, fashion design, and none of those jobs are high-paying jobs. It's just not. It was a choice that I made, and I can tell you I am not very high on the socioeconomic status, and the jobs that men, sorry, that's the school bell. The jobs that men tend to get into are higher paying jobs, including you have things like engineers specifically, like computer engineers, architecture, all of those things. Even the trade jobs, you have plumbers and construction people that tend to make a lot of money. We're talking six digits. If they're their own business owners, it's a blue collar job, but it makes a lot of money. And as well as attorneys. We do have a lot of female attorneys, and those women you will see will make will cross that economic line. But in general, that's why women tend to be poor. Not to mention, women take off a lot of time to raise kids, and I don't think this is necessarily a bad thing. People can argue whether it's good or bad, but that's the simple fact of the matter. If you have to take time off to raise children, you are not continuing your career. People are fighting for maternity leave, but even if you're paid for those 6 months, you're not increasing your worth to that business. And that's why women tend not to make as much money or to cross the economic, the economic mobility quite as quickly as men.
Yeah, one of the interesting things that I have found, and I remember seeing this a while back. I can't remember where it was, but there is actually an explanation for the wage gap that some people give, that is the changing perceptions of job as more women enter into certain fields, and as more men enter into certain fields. Like, for example, programming used to be a woman-dominated field, and back when it was a woman-dominated field, it wasn't as high paying. But nowadays, it is paying a lot more. I can't remember the particular place where I heard that, and I wish I could, because I did get some good examples.
I have a thought on that. Like, I wouldn't be very surprised to hear that a job that women used to dominate and now men dominate is now paid higher. There could be a couple reasons. I don't know if they're looking at it from an inflation standpoint, if the numbers are bigger, but so is the inflation. There's that idea. But I'm going to assume it's not having to do with inflation. Let's say it's not. Let's say that it is just an equal amount of payment. I know that one reason why two people, a man and a woman, could be working in the same situation for the same amount of time, and a man could get a promotion, is that men have a higher level of what's called disagreeableness when we're talking about character and psychology. There are different levels of, like, agreeableness, caretaking, disagreeableness. Men are more likely to go in and complain more often for a higher bit of money, or they'll say, I quit. They're not going to put up with stuff quite as long as women are. Women are, quite honestly, we're caretakers. We're designed to take care of kids, and they are as annoying as all get out sometimes. I mean, your own children, oh my gosh. And you have to be willing to put up with that, or you're going to kill the little blighters. And women tend to have that patience. We're caretakers. We want to take care of people. We don't want to, in a lot of cases, I'm not saying every woman is like this, but that tendency will lead towards men getting those promotions because they go in and they bug people. Now, women, the longer they're in the workforce, the more they are getting that backbone, and they are being more willing to change that. We have more and more women CEOs, etc.
So
I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, I sent you a in the chat. I sent you a an article which says about research shows men get ahead for being disagreeable in the workplace and women don't. It's because this is something that I have heard a fair number of times, and it's. So some of the things it says here: if you are a disagreeable man, you're considered a tough negotiator. But if the perception is that a woman is agreeable, but the perception is that if a woman is agreeable, she gets taken advantage of, and if she is disagreeable, she's considered a control freak, or the B word.
Right.
And that's the quote from the article.
Yeah, I see it. I'm reading.
I wish it had the actual. What's that?
I have heard this too, that the perception, but that is part of the process that we're going to see as women are more and more in the workforce. Sure, that is true, but as I said, we have been seeing women make strides forward as their presence becomes more normal, and we are seeing more women bosses and women CEOs, and more women in high positions in really powerful law firms in those big cities.
Yeah, like I do think that it is that it will be something that eventually closes, and I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, I would say, as you know, if you look at the long history, which I think history is often very fascinating. I really wish I could have shown you that second part of the whiteness and the white cultural thing. Because one of the things that they said that white people value is history, and is really good to look at things in perspective. So anyway, I don't teach history, but I do love it. It's interesting to look at this through a historic perspective. Women were not in the workforce for the majority of history. And so when we look at history as a whole, women have only been in the workforce for a very minuscule amount of time. And so we're still figuring out not only like how should they behave? Are they really, the B word, or are they just being firm? I can't think of the other word. Also, how are we supposed to act? What are the rules? What is sexual harassment, or what is just looking nice? We just, I don't know. There's so many questions still to ask.
Definitely. I do want to get back onto the topic of the debate, because I feel like we've gone on a huge tangent. Why is it? What are some of the reasons that you might think that there is a disparity between economic mobility between specifically white men and black men?
So this is a really, really touchy subject, what I'm about to say. And I'd like to just say that I was really careful to do my research, either dealing with numbers and statistics, or the quotes I got were from other black people, because you guys know the cancel culture is rampant right now. Honestly, I was covering my rear end. Whatever I say is not from me. It is from people in the black community, people who have come out of the black community. So I think one big thing that really affects how mobile black men are in the socioeconomic, you called it economic mobility, is because of the culture that tends to be pretty rampant in black inner city community. And I'm going to read this quote to you. This is from Candace Owens, who I said was the founder of Blexit and co-founder of Turning Point USA. She said this, quote, "In our community, we beat each other up. I got into middle school and I am bullied by black people because I got A's, because I speak proper English. You sound white. You mean I speak proper English? Is that what you mean? I speak proper English. You act in white. You mean I get A's? Think about the lack of confidence our community has that that's a thing. If you speak proper English, you sound white. If you get good grades, you act in white. They've done such a number on us, and then they attack, and they want people to feel bad about themselves for making good decisions, for reading books, for getting good grades, for going to college. They associate that with whiteness. So my point is, I think that the culture that downgrades the importance of education, the importance of really fatherhood, the importance of these things that help you get ahead is what keeping males, Black males specifically, back. Because I know, and I can name several Black males who not only have broken out of that culture, but have skyrocketed to the head of everything. Ben Carson was the leading world neurosurgeon. He is the first, and I don't know if he's the only, but he was the first man to separate Siamese twins joined at the head. He separated those babies. And we had President Obama was Black, and we had Colin Powell was our leader of our military. And these are men who broke that system, who said, I'm not going to listen to these people who say that I'm talking white or acting white. I'm going to get this education, and I'm going to work hard, and I'm not going to be violent, and I'm going to get out. And I think that's what's keeping them back. Well,
yeah, there can be elements of culture there, but one thing I do have to say is that and this goes back to my point earlier, just because that I made right at the start, just because someone just because someone is Black doesn't mean that they are not going to do well. It is always possible for Black people to do well. But if this were a factor of just culture, do you think that rich Black people would have a different culture than poor Black people?
Do I think that they would?
Yes.
I think if you look at what made them rich, you will see that they have different culture. So if what made them rich was the education and the education to get, say, the doctorate or to become the president, because I've known several Black professors, and as I mentioned, Dr. Carson, those people who got rich through that type of education, their culture is different. But if you look at the rich, a lot of the rich sports people who made it through colleges because they got into scholarships and they become millionaires through the NFL. In a couple of years, they've blown through their wealth. And some of them are arrested even during their NFL time. And that is a sign that the culture has not left them.
Well, the reason why I asked this is because when it comes to, because I'm pretty sure the study that I'm referencing focuses mostly on how much money your parents had, and then how much money their children make, and comparatively. So, the reason why I asked this is because if it were a thing with culture, I'd assume that rich Black people would have a slightly different cultures, because they wouldn't have to deal with more ghetto-y places. They wouldn't be living in these poor Black communities. They'd be in more affluent communities, and therefore, theoretically, they should have the same. If there is nothing to sort of keep them down from environmental influence, you would expect there to be a lot more. You'd expect them to basically have the same economic mobility as white people, but that is not the case. And I'll send you a link to the particular one, just so that you can have it up, so that you know what I'm talking about.
Okay.
Yeah, looking at the graphic.
Yeah, I'm about to look at it. I was going to ask you if there was a way to differentiate, like, which group of people you're looking at, but it says, okay, I'm looking at this now.
The one that I'm particularly looking at is Black men enjoy much less mobility than white men, but the gap between Black and white women is small. Just right below that is the graph that I'm referring to.
Right. Have you Okay, I don't know the answer to this question, but my gut instinct is to think of Thomas Sowell. Have you heard of him?
No, I haven't. Who's that?
Thomas Sowell he's an American man. This is so tiny. Let me look. Thomas Sowell is an American economist, social theorist, and senior fellow at Stanford University Hoover Institution. This was also a Black American. And he was, as I said, an economist. So he studied this stuff he's 90 something now. So goodness, he's been studying it for at least half a century. And one of the things he said was, hang on, that was about to be a rabbit trail. Oh, the thing that affects Black culture, and it does affect white culture as well, and it's showing up in culture, is that the things that are glorified in rap and hip hop. I shouldn't say hip hop. I think hip hop can be really cool sometimes. Certain types of dance, like the twerking and the sexual glorification of women specifically, or not glorification, I should say, objectifying. Is very prevalent in that, and that does affect the culture across the board, and it is touching, like even our young white kids at school. Yeah, it's just not good stuff, and that has really affected people, and I think that would be where they were affecting even the people. The kids in that higher, it said the 75th percentile. The kids were falling down to the 12th percentile. It may be that answer is that the culture they're still drawing from is that negative violence and sexual culture, which he has a book about where that culture comes from. And it's actually parts of England that migrated to the south of America, the redneck culture. Fascinating book about where I'm sorry, I'll stop that. I just got really excited again about history. I don't know if I answered that well. That was not succinct. Did that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense. I'm not too sure how much that would play into it, because obviously culture is going to play into that. But the question that I'd ask then, like, because when it comes to these things, there is always the question of, are you a product of environment, or are you a product more of I think it's generally the question of, are you a product of your environment, or can you just decide I want to do well? And I think that I think that you definitely do have, the environment does play a role, but then there is also some people do have the drive to get out of certain situations, right. And that's where I'd reference implicit bias. Okay. So I'm sure you are.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say, I'm sure you're familiar with implicit bias.
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't need to go ahead and explain it. Cool. So do you think that implicit bias would at least play a small role within things like economic mobility?
Implicit bias play a small role. I think if it played a role, it would be much smaller than the other things that I mentioned. The importance of a 2-parent household, the importance of a good education, and then, as you said, the desire to make something of yourself and get out. Those 3 things are going to affect you so much more. In fact, there are so many fascinating stories. In fact, actually, I'm not even going to say that, because I think statistics are always better. If you look at the statistics, the Black family culture, not the Black family culture, the Black Americans as a whole were making greater strides in the 1950s when there was insane racism. We're talking segregation. We're talking, poll tax, and we're talking lynchings. They were making greater strides economically in the 1950s than they are now. And why was that? It was because the culture was like, you hold on to your family with everything you've got. You take care of what is yours and you work hard. It doesn't matter what the white man says. It doesn't matter how they treat you. You look down, you say, yes, ma'am, you say, no, ma'am, and you make your money. And it was terrible then. The racism was so bad. And that's why I want to make clear, white privilege certainly was a thing. But what's happening now, if people are held back, it's not because of the bias, because if it was because of bias, they could overcome it. They overcame it in the 1950s, the 1930s, during all those times. But something else, since the deterioration of the family, which unfortunately began in the 1970s, and that is what's causing so much disparity, I think, between the things.
I do have to say about the point on getting married, because I have heard people talk about, say, like there was this person, not sure if you're familiar with him, Sargon of Akkad, who has mentioned black people have a lower rate of marriage, and he says that what they should do is getting married more, because black married couples have higher income than black unmarried individuals, right?
And the family's more stable.
But the thing is, I think that the case there is that people with higher income would be more likely to get married. Not that, and if you have a higher income, that is a good indicator of your success in life.
There is definitely, okay, so there's definitely an advantage to a wealth advantage. However, not having wealth is not a good reason to not get married or to have children out of wedlock. If you can't afford to, God, honestly, if you can't afford to get married, you can't afford to have kids. And that's the simple truth. Yeah, I don't think I have anything else to say on that one.
Well, Catz, what are you about to say?
Well, I was going to say that might be a good point, because we do normally finish sort of like 10 minutes prior to now. We've had just over an hour there of the debate, and I think would now Creaky be a good time to have like a sum up from each of the debaters, like a summing up?
Yeah.
And then,
okay, who for one show?
It is, but I've got to say I'm really impressed with how you've both done tonight. And Mary, when we leave the call, can you stay on? Because a couple of things I want to ask her, actually. Is that okay? And obviously, Plain or Walk, stay on, because I want to say goodbye. I'm not saying you can piss off, but no, you stay. But when we do end the call, please stay on, because a couple of things I want to ask you. But for now, who went first in the introduction? So, Plain or Walk, do you want to, while I do a dance and sing a song, do you want to gather your thoughts and give like a summing up argument, and then Mary can give a summing up?
Okay, yeah. So I do want to just address a few points before. So there's the point of, people that are poor shouldn't have, people that don't have the money to have kids shouldn't have kids. And I would agree with that, but it seems that rich people tend to have less kids across the board, right? Regardless of whether you're white, black, Hispanic, whatever. Across the board, it seems to be that if you are rich, you will have less kids. And I think that's probably due to education. And I think that when it comes to education, education in poorer areas does tend to be worse off, which can lead to problems exacerbating. And at this point, that point, it's not even a race problem. It's just that poor areas will tend to have, poorer education. One point that I do want to make about black people getting good education is it has been found, like one study, I don't have the study on hand, although I did try and find it. One study found that on message boards for online community, online message boards, professors tended to answer students more if they were white rather than if they were black. And lastly, one thing that I did want to address was one of the things in your introduction that was about Asians, doing better than white people, and I think that's just due to the fact that Asian people to go over to America, they need a bit more money than they need more money to be able to actually get to America in the first place, and therefore, if you've got more money, then you're able to do better. And also, people from, I think it's Nigeria, that go over to America tend to, black people from Nigeria tend to do better because they've got the money. And so, yeah, that's my closing points.
Brilliant. Mary, over to you.
Okay. Sorry, gathering my thoughts from your last comments. I think that the things that you were mentioning, the things that you have brought up, in most cases are not examples of white privilege, but are of different privileges than white privilege. You talked about the economic privilege that people have coming over, for example, which I will say that I won't say most because I don't know the number, but very many people who arrive in the United States they had money to get out of their country, but they arrived very poor in America. And secondly, the fact that richer people have fewer kids than poor people, again, is not a racial privilege. That is an education privilege. It could be a wealth privilege. White people are not handed money unless they're under the poverty line. Our welfare state handles things like that. I think that our problems would be better solved if we tried to figure out better education. If we taught people to wait to have children until after they were married, and if we taught people that you had to work for what you had and stopped. Well, I'm not going to criticize the welfare state right now. We should stop focusing on differences in race and start focusing on what is actually causing the disparities, and that is lack of education, broken homes, and helping people to work harder.
Awesome. Right, there's a couple of things I want to ask both of you offline. I've been watching the side chat, Creaky, and it's been quite an interesting debate going on in there as well.
Debate going on in the side chat, yeah, along with the debate we've been listening to.
I can see this not being the last time we approach this subject. I think there's been a lot of unanswered questions in the chat. A lot of people wanting to do so. Yeah, I've really, really enjoyed listening to that. And thank you both for coming and preparing and giving your time for it. I really, really appreciate it. Mary, I know you've had a hell of a day because you've been working and you're still at work now by the looks of it. So thank you so much for doing that. Playing our walk, mate. And I know you've got up massively early in the morning to do this. Are you usually an early riser or?
No, I usually go to bed really late.
Well, thank you for getting up to do this. Really appreciate it. I will speak to you both off in a second, but I'm just looking forward to the comments that are going to be underneath this video because I know there will be a follow up to this. Absolutely positive. But I'll pass you over to Creaky to say goodbye, and then I'll see you both.
Yeah, 100%. There'll be a follow up to this, and I think the comment section underneath this video is definitely going to be worth having a look at. So. Thanks to everybody for tuning in. Thank you to Almost Unbelievable for his super chat, and we will see you next Wednesday. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
See ya.